again, friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Amy, and I'm glad you decided to join me for this video. I hope everybody is having an awesome Wednesday. I know I am, and just realized I forgot to put on my wedding ring. I don't know why. Oh well, it's the midweek. Anyway, for today's video, I'm going to be reading chapter 5 of my book, Legends Orbs of the Elements. If you are new to my channel or new to this story, I will be sharing all the info to where you can purchase this book at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. And without further ado, let's just jump right back into this adventure. Chapter 5. The next morning, Castilia and Leon were determined to get the orb and to be on their way as soon as time would permit. The townspeople were going about their daily life as usual. Hardly anyone was around the well. It was mostly for decoration, but it could also be used if someone wanted to drink. They both made sure no one was watching as Leon slipped the rope harness around his waist and thighs. Castilia held the other end of the rope. Leon then just stood on the rim of the well and cautiously climbed in. The air around Leon was damp and clammy, excuse me. He used his 2 feet to steady himself against the inner wall of the well. He studied the stones of the wall. Leon breathed out. Nothing. He couldn't find anything, not even the slightest clue where the orb might be hidden. No, he told himself. The legend didn't play around when she came and told him about her task and the orb. Anything? He heard Castilia ask. No, not yet. Wait, I might have just found something, he said excitedly. He noticed that some of the stones were not all straight, and the mortar made... No, it couldn't be, but it was. The mortar made a... I'm sorry if you hear noise in the background. My cats are just being really rambunctious. But no, it couldn't be. The mortar was made of wave-like patterns. Leon traced the wave-like patterns in front of him until it suddenly stopped. The name of the builder was in the wave mortar where the pattern had stopped. Interesting, he thought. Leon dug into his pocket and brought forth a knife from the meal the man had brought them in the inn. With faith, he began to try to remove the hard mortar with his knife. Much to his delight, little bits began to crumble and fall away from the stone with writing on it. When he thought enough was removed, he put the knife away, and with one hand holding the rope, he used the other to gently remove the stone. He looked for a place to put it. The only place that was available was his pocket. It was a bulky fit, but it would have to do. His heart raced with anticipation as he reached inside the opening. He felt around until his hand came over something round-shaped. He removed his hand to see what he had recovered. His heart beat even faster. There, in the damp, clammy well, was a beautiful, flawless, light-color blue orb. He didn't know what to do. He switched hands and brought the stone back to its resting place. Then he breathed in and out and gingerly put the orb in his pocket. "I've got it," he called up to Castilia. He began to make his climb back up. As he was swinging his leg back over the side, a person looked at them strangely. Castilia said nothing, but smiled. She made me drop my weapon in the water. Bad girl." He slapped her hard. The person shook their head and moved on with their business. Once alone again, Leon took out the orb to show Castilia. "I'm proud of you," she said. "Here, hold it while I get the carrying case for it." He handed it to her without a second thought. She instantly dropped it to the ground. "No, Only the hunter of the orbs may touch it, for if not in the hunter's hands, it will protect itself by any means. He looked at her hands as he opened the tubular case. Her hands were very red, like when you put your hands too close to a fire. Leon then wiped the orb on his shirt and set it in place and closed the lid up tight. He then took her hands. Are you okay? I didn't mean for it to happen. I'm still a beginner. She smiled. Yes, I'm fine. See? Her hands were back to the normal flesh color. As they headed back to the inn to collect their horses, a noise that was growing louder caught their attention. Without warning, a dozen of the prince's soldiers, all on horseback, emerged. The captain gave orders. Gather the people and be quick about it. Leon and Castilia burst out in a run as fast as they could. The prince's men were trained to perfection. Leon and Castilia were caught in the midst of the townspeople. They didn't seem too happy about it either. The captain came close to them on his horse. He looked fierce. People of the eastern coast, I bring you good news. Prince Nero wants peace and wants you to prosper. All he asks is a small monthly tribute to him, and you may not fear his wrath upon you. He has seen too much blood in his time, and now where is the high priest? He asked, looking at the crowd and stopping to look at the people here and there. No one said anything. The captain turned to one of his men. Find him and bring him here. The other men nodded and headed off to find the priest. Many minutes passed by until the man rode back up to the captain. He whispered in his ear. The captain turned to him. The soldier nodded to confirm. The captain then turned back to the people of the eastern coast. People of the sea, it seems that you do not respect the decisions that the prince had given you. All he asked was to follow the one he put in charge, the high priest. And how do you repay his kindness for not invading and giving you freedom? You murdered the person who's in charge. Now he warned you, and you must suffer. He turned to the other men not surrounding the people. Burn the ships. Every last one. A great outcry arose. No, there must be another way. The captain didn't seem to hear their pleas. The people watched helplessly as their ships, their way of life, was being torn apart. No one dared to try to stand up for themselves. The prince's men never showed any mercy to any who tried to stop them. The captain turned to them as if he forgot to tell them something. He spoke in an uncaring tone. Oh yes, one more thing. If you have any information concerning the legend or hunter, let them speak now, and we will spare your ship. The shop owner forced himself to the captain and pointed a finger at Leon and Castilia. There they are, those two last night. She killed the priest. All eyes fell to them. Castilia looked hard at him. She had warned him not to speak out that night. She drew her sword and, using the hilt, knocked him to the ground. What? Me? I thought it was that man. She pointed to some random man. Then, from somewhere, a fist came out and punched someone. The chaos broke out. The captain attempted to control it. Shoot them now, he yelled. Lances flew and slew some bystanders. Some others attacked the soldiers and one another. Leon and Castilia whistled, and their horses came up to them. They swiftly got on. They had to ride fast. The captain called to his men, You four, after them! The men chosen nodded and pursued the legend and hunter. The world seemed to fly by in a whirl of colors. Reds, grays, browns, all blended into one massive blur as the two rode on. The four men were gaining on them. Castilia knew they were coming to a fork in the road. One road led to the border of the southern woods. The other was less traveled for good reason. No one in their right mind would dare go on that road. Creatures of the dark lived there. She had to think fast. The pursuers were almost upon them and getting ready to shoot arrows in their bows. Elements protect us, she whispered as she went on the road less traveled. The men were relentless in their pursuit, and now were firing at them. They heard the arrows fly by them. Deeper and deeper the two companions rode until they were in a thick, marshy swamp. They hid behind some massive, gnarled trees. They got off their tired, sweat-covered animals and watched. The soldiers were heading right for them. The lukewarm water began to seep into their boots. Mosquitoes buzzed around their bodies and biting savagely at their exposed necks. One of the soldiers spotted them. He called out, "They're behind the tree!" At this point, Leon had notched his own arrow in his bow. Castilla held her sword at the ready. Leon then released his arrow. Thwack! It hit its target, and the man stumbled back and fell in the water with a splash. Leon had never killed anyone before with his weapon. He looked at his hands that were trembling uncontrollably. The other three were upon them. The trained soldiers' muscles flexed under their uniforms. The men were about to charge when a gigantic shadowy figure emerged from another area, curious about the disturbance. Its legs were strong and looked like an ox. Its hairy torso resembled that of a wolf. The head was scaly, like that of a dragon, with razor-sharp teeth. The creature had huge leathery wings. Then the men lost all their courage and backed away slowly. When they were gone, it saw the dead man in the swamp. Instead, it ran over and ripped. Instantly, it ran over and ripped and ate the man into bits. Leon could feel himself getting sick and vomited. While the creature was occupied, the companions began to make their way out as well. Castilla was careful when she stopped so she would not startle the creature. She was almost to the horses when a branch beneath her feet snapped. The creature turned and stared at her with deep, bloodshot eyes. The monster came charging at her and knocked her on her back. She tried feeling for her weapon, but the blow had caused her to drop it. She stared wide-eyed in fright as the monster made a low, growl, gurgling noise. She tried to back up, but slipped on the root, and the creature attacked and went for her shoulder. She let out a scream of pain as Castilla felt the teeth beginning to enter her flesh. At that moment, the monster let out an ear-ringing scream of pain itself. Leon had hit it with an arrow. Angry, it turned its attention on him. Castilla tried to fight the pain and blurriness, but it was too intense, and she passed out in the swamp water. The creature snapped and growled at Leon. Inside, he wanted to run as fast as he could. He knew he had to stay and fight. He swiftly changed weapons, and got his sword out. The creature towered over him. It was an intense moment, each sizing up the other. Each was ready to fight to the death. There was blood dripping from the claws and teeth from the massive predator. At this moment, Leon asked his brother to help him. Then he lunged at the huge creature. Suddenly, a massive white light beamed off the sword, and the creature turned away. Then the light was gone. Time was frozen for a long time, it felt like to Leon. Then something incredible happened. The creature's horrible features retracted like that of a turtle's, sticking his head back into its shell. Leon was now staring at a man who was a bit older than his father. The man had sweat all over him. He seemed dazed and confused. Leon ran to where Castilla had fallen. He dived into the warm, murky water. He came back, dripping wet and out of breath. He reached his hand up for a branch, but got the man's hand instead. He was very strong and pulled him up on the bank with an unconscious Castilian next to him. She had a large gash on her shoulder. "Get away from her!" Leon barked at the man. The man said nothing, but looked at the gash. "Come, she needs treatment. I mean you both no harm. Please come follow me." Leon felt something strange about this man, but there was no time to argue. He carried Castilia in his arms. The man led him a long time under large tree limbs and over tree roots. Leon was just about to ask how much further when the man stopped. There, just a few paces away, was a small village above the water on platforms. The man opened the door for Leon. He silently showed him a bed for him to put Castilia on. Leon did. He suddenly drew his sword and glared at the man. He froze. Leon saw his older brother as a ghostly figure, shaking his head no. Leon ignored him. "No tricks. One false move, and I swear I will kill you." There was sorrow and worry in his voice. "I promise, but I am the only one that can help your friend now. Please put your weapon away." Reluctantly, Leon did. He noticed a puncture on the side of the man in the same spot he had hit the horrible creature. Odd, he thought to himself. He thought as he watched the men tend to Castilia with care. "What was that thing back there?" Leon asked, not really wanting to hear the answer. The man tended to his friend's wound. "Do you really want to know?" he asked, not taking his eyes or attention off his patient. Leon leaned back against the wall. He frowned. "Yes, I'd rather know who I'm fighting." Just then, the man supported Castilia up and put a cup to her nose to inhale. Instantly, she was awake. "Ah! Ooh! The pain! Make it stop!" She wailed and winced, trying to move. The man rubbed her back. "Calm down, drink, and rest." She did what she was told. After a few sips, she collapsed on the pillow and fell asleep. Leon looked at her. "Don't worry, it's a natural sleeping remedy. Chamomile, rose hips, and honey." Leon nodded. The man got up and handed a towel to Leon to get dry. "Come here. I have some warm clothes. Go in my room to change into. When you come out, I'll explain some things to you." Leon took the clothes and stepped into the room and shut the door. To Leon, it felt good to be out of his wet, cold, dirty clothes. His replacement clothes were a little baggy, but would have to do. He came back out. The man had a chair by a small fire. He took Leon's wet clothes and set them on a bench next to the heat to dry. "Now, first things first. The creature you saw and fought was called simply a beast. Second, you got rid of the beast with the sword and the help of the spirit, for they see things others cannot." He paused and handed Leon a cup of hot liquid inside. Leon smelled the familiar tea. It felt good in his hands. The beast, I am the beast," the man said in a low voice. Leon choked on his tea. "What? I don't understand," he said with bitterness and sadness in his voice. The man let a tiny sliver of a smile show on his face. "Look for yourself," he said, and lifted his tunic, where, to Leon's surprise, there was a scar, a fresh scar. The man put his tunic down again, as if now ashamed. He drew his eyes to the floor. "Boy, you know curses are real, don't you?" he asked, still not looking at the guest in his house. Leon finished his drink and answered in a joking tone, "Yes. Why? Are you cursed?" The man shook his head sadly with grief. "Yes, I was once a council member of my people. We live in this swamp all our lives. Well, as the war between the North and the South went on, the prince asked for our help. We talked it over and voted, and ended up not helping him. Naturally, he was not happy to hear this, so he took our children away and cursed them. He told us if he wanted to lift the curse, we had to serve him. We refused. A mistake. In response to us denying him, the prince sent us our children's heads back to us. Enraged, we tried and fought with him. He, in turn, cursed us and told us we were beasts for letting our children die. So now some of my people killed themselves. Others serve Prince Nero. I escaped and now patrol my homeland." The host paused and sighed and continued his narrative. Now how the curse works is we have to be enraged, then we are consumed by it. Leon was stone-faced in somber silence. "I'm sorry for your loss. Isn't there any way of reversing the curse?" Leon asked, hoping there would be something. The man shook his head. No, only the one who curses you can remove the curse. My wife and son both asked me to kill them. Do you know the pain of holding your dying family in your arms?" he asked, with anger and hot tears in his eyes. Leon remained silent. He wiped his tears on his sleeve. "Now I bet you want to know my name. It's Riplin. You can call me Rip for short. What's your name, lad?" "Well, Rip, my name is Leon of the Western Plains." He didn't want to tell Riplin he was a hunter of the orbs. Riplin nodded, liking the name. "Well, you must be hunting for something," he said with a wink, and went to check on Castilia. She was still sleeping calmly, relaxed. "What makes you say that?" Leon asked. "Why else would you be traveling with a legend?" Oh, sorry guys, my nose itches. Whew. Leon looked up. "Don't worry, they are friends." Leon sighed in relief. Now Riplin got up and began to make a soup. Leon got up to help the man. He asked, "Riplin, do you think Castilia will recover?" The man looked at his guest. "Yes, but it will take her 2 days. I gave her a good bite. Sorry, I didn't know she was a legend. Now, after we get done taking care of the soup, let's sit back down and tell me, how much do you know about legends?" That night, Leon slept close by his friend. For now, they were safe. Leon slept in a deep, dreamless sleep. John of the Western Plains woke up with pain surging all over his body. A single torch was in a slot on the wall. He tried to stand, but his legs gave out on him. He had to wait a few minutes before his eyes adjusted to the dim light. The cold, smooth stone told him he was in a prison or a dungeon. John used his arms to pull himself across the floor. He summoned all his strength and made himself stand. John's stomach ached with pain. He lifted his shirt and saw a large cut running vertically down. Dried blood was around the cut area. Then John realized that June was not there with him. His mind raced. Where was she? "June! June! Where are you?" he called out, hoping to hear her reply back. There was no answer. When the pains of his body were growing too much, he slumped back down on his rear. John tried to recall the reason for this. The man remembered the 2 people that had come to his house. John then, in a flash, remembered it all. The strong beamed door opened without a sound. "Well, it's good to see you've awakened. I was beginning to think I put too much poison on my blade," the old man said, who had come to his house. The old woman was also with him. She shut the door tight. "Who are you?" John asked. Now it was the woman who spoke. "How forgetful of us. You passed out before we could introduce ourselves." She moved away and lit another torch. There was now plenty of light to see. Then the man and woman both shook like a dog when it's wet, and their disguises disintegrated off of them. John was now staring at a middle-aged blonde woman with one blue eye and one brown eye. She had a dark plum-colored dress on. The man had gray hair and a section of white hair intermixed. His robes were a mix of grays, blues, and blacks. "I'm Rifa, Queen of the Witches, and this is—" She paused and looked at the wizard up and down, but didn't continue, as if disgusted with him. "I am Blinken, Lord of the Wizards." John's heart skipped a beat. Back home, he had learned about witches and wizards. Some were good, some were bad, but it was common knowledge that no one spoke of these two names in the same sentence. They were both superior with their skills. There was also a war that only witches and wizards fought. John now looked up at them. "What do you want with me?" he asked bravely to them. The witch and wizard both glanced at each other. Then Rifa broke into chuckles, and Blinken shook his head from side to side. Rifa knelt so she could see John's face. "Why would we want you? The truth is we don't, you simple man. It is our master who wants you." John searched her eyes for a moment. "Prince Nero, what does he want with me?" the prisoner asked, trying to keep the pain from overtaking him. The wizard folded his arms across his chest. "Our master has his reasons. Now let's see how that wound is doing." Rifa got up and tried to take John's arm to help him up. He shoved her away. "Get back! I can get up on my own." She said nothing and stood next to the wizard. Lincoln then came close to him. He walked around John as if he had never seen the man before. "Do you think you can walk?" he asked at last, as he came and stopped in front of John again. John's pain was a dull pain, but he wanted to be out of this smelly cell. The prisoner didn't speak, but nodded. "Good. I told you, Rifa, his strength would return to him." Rifa was clearly not pleased with this. She swung the door open and stepped out. Lincoln followed her and turned. "Follow us," the wizard said. John forced himself to move. The three walked down a long, dark passage. John saw the door up ahead. He tripped over his feet and fell. Rifa and Blinken turned to him. John used his hands to push himself up again. He now made his way to them. John could see Rifa use a magic key to open a door. The witch let the wizard enter first. He was followed by John and her. Once in the room, she locked the door again. The room was large. It had a fireplace to the right and left wall. To the north and south, there were two water fountains that were made of marble. In the center of the room, there was a big wooden slab with feet to support it. As the three got closer, John could see there was shackles for the feet and manacles for the hands attached to the wooden slab. As if John wasn't in the room, Rifa and Blinken began to tend to things. They both put on white aprons and began to put jars and vials on another table. They also put containers of different colored powders and empty colored glass jars next to the others. When they seemed to have everything they needed, they turned their attention back to John. He looked straight ahead. "Come," Blinken said. "Come," Blinken spoke. He led the prisoner to the wooden slab. "Can you lay on this?" he asked. John looked at the slab. There were dark bloodstains embedded in the wood grain. "You mean to torture me? Fine. I won't tell you anything. You'll just have to kill me." "Why does everyone think we torture everyone? It's an insult to my people." She waited till Blinkin made sure the shackles and manacles were tight. Rifa came up to John. Would you like a gag, or would you prefer the bark of a tree? She held the two items up for John to see. He spat at her. She set the items down and used her apron to wipe the spit away. The witch didn't miss a bead or get upset with him. All right, the gag it is. She handed it off to Blinkin to take care of. The wizard shoved the gag into the man's mouth. Next, he ripped John's shirt up the middle so the wound was exposed. Then he went to the table and began with his back turned to John, mixing things into a bowl. John couldn't see what it was he was doing. Rifa looked at his wound intensely. Shall we begin, John? Good. I didn't think you would object. Rifa dipped her hands in a bowl of water before she began. She then proceeded to put different mixtures into the wound. At first small amounts. If she got no reaction out of him, she would try a different one. As she put a small amount of vinegar wine into his wound, he screamed out in a blood-curdling scream. Ah, that's the one. Now calm down. He strained his neck to see what she was doing. To the prisoner's amazement, she was cleaning his wound. The wizard said nothing the whole time. John guessed this was her area of knowledge. John's eyes were bloodshot. Blinkin now came up to him and removed his gag. He turned to Rifa. I'll go get the master. You are about done with him. Rifa did a single nod. Blinkin took off his apron and exited out of the room. John had been so focused on what Rifa and Blinkin were doing, he didn't realize that the pain wasn't so intense. He looked up at the ceiling. Many tiny crystal stars hung down on strings and seemed to dance with the firelight. John ventured a question. Queen Rifa, why tend my wounds? I don't see the sense in it. She stopped stitching and looked down at him, almost tenderly, before she answered. No one has called me queen in a long time. The prince understands that if you want someone to talk, they need to be strong enough to talk and have a use for you. Otherwise, you'll have been dead. Otherwise, have been dead long ago. John breathed out slowly. He pondered this. She soon finished and came up to him. Rest now. We will be back later. With that, she dried her hands and left the room, taking the key with her. She walked to where Blinkin and Prince Nero were playing an ancient game of lords. You had to kill the other opponent's lords by maneuvering across the board of painted squares. Rifa stood silent as the men played. The prince moved a piece and looked up. Rifa, Blinkin, tell me you're nearly done. She nodded and came close to where both men were seated. She saw that they were almost done with the game. He should be fine for this evening's meal in a couple of hours. I will feed him some gruel. If he can keep it down, I will inform you. She boldly picked up both the prince's piece and the wizard's piece and tapped them together. Next, she gave the pieces to the opposite players. A draw, she said flatly, bowed, and asked, Will that be all, master? The prince gave her a smile of respect and nodded. She left without delay. So that is the end of chapter 5. Thank you all so much for watching. If you are interested in purchasing this book, it can be found on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Apple iBooks, and lots of other fun places. It is so fun reading this book. I cannot wait to see you guys tomorrow for chapter 6. If you like this part of the story, please give it a big like, subscribe, share with friends and family. Down in the comments down below, tell me if you are a witch fan or a wizard fan. Who do you like more, Blinkin or Rifa? I'd love to know, so please leave a comment down below. Or if you like neither, let me know. And or if you don't like any of them, since they are sort of sinister, tell me who your favorite character is thus far. I'd really love to know. Like I said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow for chapter 6. Bye-bye for now, everybody.